Hi storytellers, and welcome back to the Create a Story You Love YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be continuing with part 7 of this video series on 7 steps to nail down your novel before you begin writing. If you haven't watched the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth videos, I encourage you to go back and just watch those videos. They'll kind of take you through a progression of the 7 steps to nail down your novel. In today's video, and it's the last video in this series, part 7, brainstorm and write down your story's main foundational elements, which are number 1, your inciting incident, number 2, crossing the threshold, number 3, your midpoint revelation, number 4, your all is lost moment, and number 5, act 3, the aha moment for the hero. So just a quick little note here, the ideas I share in this video series are brainstorming techniques that have helped me in my own novels. But it's important to remember that all writers are unique and different in their own way, and what works for me might not be what works for you. So I want to encourage you to experiment with different methods for brainstorming your own story ideas and come up with the way that works best for you. But on to today's topic, brainstorming and writing down your story's main foundational elements. So if, these are important elements to remember. These are story beats that I feel like they are important to nail down before you start writing. And so I hope this 7th step and final step in this series is helpful to you. These 5 beats, which I mentioned, the inciting incident, crossing the threshold, the midpoint revelation, and the all is lost moment, and when your hero enters act 3. These are all important beats for your story plot. And these beats also set a new direction for where the story plot is going to go. So once you are clear on these beats, all the other beats, like in between, tend to fall into place. And so I think that's partly why this has helped me. So I hope it helps you too. So here's a summary of each of these 5 foundational elements. I hope you can, just by going through these, that it'll help you with your own main characters and your own story to see where they fit. So number 1 is the inciting incident. This is a life-changing event that happens to the hero, which propels them into the new world they are entering. This is an action beat that should be big enough to stop the hero from being able to return to their ordinary world. So this is like a catalyst. Basically you are telling readers that change is critical. There is something that's happening that won't allow your hero to stay in the status quo world. And it's just not an option to stay in their ordinary world. So something needs to happen. And this is where it happens, in the inciting incident, or the catalyst. Some people call it a catalyst. For example, when a dying girl meets, a boy at a cancer support group in the book The Fault in Your Stars by John Green. Or when a young girl meets a stray dog in the book Because of Winn-Dixie by Kat DiCamillo. Or in The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins, when Katniss volunteers to take her sister's place in the reaping. These are all examples of a catalyst, right? So some type of bad news, shocking circumstances, something like that paves the way for change. And these are all examples of an inciting incident. It's basically a wake-up call, and a call to action for your hero. And conflict is what really makes a good story. And so when your hero is surprised or shocked by what this inciting incident, by this catalyst, their response probably, could be, I didn't see this coming, which means that you have a great catalyst on your hands. So that's the definition of number 1, which was the inciting incident. Number 2 is crossing the threshold. This is the moment when your hero chooses to accept the call to action and leave their ordinary, comfortable world and step into the new world and a new way of thinking. This is an action that the hero chooses to make that separates her or him from their ordinary world where they enter the new world. This is where the hero breaks into Act 2 of your story. The challenge and call to adventure have been accepted by your hero, and a new way of life has started. So if you have written your story well, you should see a big change from the ordinary world of Act 1 to the new and quite different world of Act 2 for the hero. Your hero does not have to physically go somewhere for this beat to be different, but they do need to try something new. Some examples might be a new relationship, a new job, a new school. So these are examples of how things could be different. It's not like they have to go on a really long journey, although some books do that, right? So however you want this, change to happen for them. So whether or not your hero goes on a literal journey, this crossing the threshold moment is when the hero leaves their old world and, old way of thinking behind, and they step into the new world and the new way of thinking. And this is a single scene beat that shows your hero now thrust into their new world. Some examples, Katniss Everdeen, when she enters the capital in the Hunger Games, this is a new world, right? From her District 12, she enters this new world of the capital. In the novel Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Jane sets out for Thornfield to be the new governess. And so this is a new situation for her. And so this is her breaking out of an old mindset and physically a new world. So it's important to note in this beat that your hero must be proactive about choosing to enter this new world. The decision to go into this new world, it can be mentioned by, another of your characters, like a mentor, a good friend, but the actual choice must be from the hero to accept the call to adventure that awaits for them in this new world. So that is the crossing the threshold moment. The next step number 3, is your midpoint revelation. And this is in the middle of the novel. At this point, the fun and games ends up as either a false victory, where it seems like the hero has been succeeding, or a false defeat, where the hero so far has been blundering and failing. In the midpoint, something happens here to raise the stakes for the hero, which pushes the hero towards real change. The midpoint of your novel is the pivot point in your story. This point in the story is precisely the center of the hero's transformation. And it's important to use that to your advantage and to make the middle of your story as exciting as possible. And this is basically a single scene beat where 3 very important things must happen. Number 1, your hero experiences a false victory or a false defeat. So if things are working well for your hero and things are going good and they're enjoying this, then this is more than likely a false victory because the novel is halfway done and your hero hasn't won until he or she has actually learned the theme. That's why it's a false victory. For example, in the movie The Martian, Mark Watney is harvesting his potato crop, and it looks like he'll have enough food, and it all looks good. Like he'll be able to have enough food to wait out the amount of time until his team comes back, right? But his larger external goal of actually getting off the planet still needs to be figured out, and the same goes for his internal goals of conquering his fears. And so he's experiencing a false victory. Thus, number 2 is when the stakes of your story are raised. So when you raise the stakes of your story, you are essentially telling your hero, your time is up, and there is no more messing around. You've got to figure this out. So when the stakes are raised, the story gets more interesting, and you are literally forcing your hero into a new course of action that will lead to the change they are so desperate to have. Some examples of raising the stakes, say in a romance novel, the love story ramps up. Maybe there's a declaration of love. There's maybe a proposal. In a thriller, a time clock appears and the hero needs to rush to meet the deadline before someone is killed or the world ends. In mystery and crime novels, a big game-changing plot twist might be a way of, ramping up the stakes. In all of these examples of midpoints, you can notice a subtle shift from wants to needs. And this brings us to the third important midpoint element, which is the A and B stories must intersect in some way. Now, this is when your hero begins to let go of what they want to focusing on what they really need. When the stakes are raised, your hero realizes they are missing something and something needs to change. And so this is when the A and the B stories intersect. So continuing on with these 5 elements, the element number 4 is the all is lost moment. This is the hero's lowest point. This is an action beat where something happens to the hero that pushes the hero to rock bottom. Also, the hero faces his biggest wounds and internal fears. This is where your hero has reached rock bottom. In other words, your hero has tried everything else, and most likely they have lost almost everything that's important to them, and they can't see their, true path forward. So before our heroes can find that true path to real transformation, they have to reach such a low point that they have no other option but to change. To make this beat as, moving as possible, add something that hints at death. So either a physical death or a psychological death, maybe a death of an idea, something that hints at some kind of death. For example, in the Hunger Games, when Rue is killed, for Katniss, that is a big all is lost moment. And I think she has several of them, but that would be one, because you can tell things are ramping up there, right? And so all is lost moment is where the old world, old characters, old way of thinking finally dies so that the new way of thinking can be born. Whatever is happening in the all is lost moment should be in some way your hero's fault. Now, why would that be important? Because your hero still hasn't learned the theme. The hero must be in some way responsible, otherwise there's no lesson to be learned. And that's really the point, right? That's why all is lost, because it comes, it's very personal to them, right? And from this, there's a lesson to be learned. And the lesson is learned in the theme, right? And so that's important. So number 5, and the last one in this 5 elements that are important in this 7th step, is the aha moment for the hero. So at the start of Act 3, the hero has an aha moment where they realize what they must do to fix all the problems that were created in Act 2. However, it's more than just fixing the problems from Act 2. It's also about the hero fixing themselves. The hero's transformational arc is nearly complete at this point in the story. So at this point in your novel, your hero has a breakthrough moment. Thanks to the struggles they've faced and the lessons they've learned, your hero finally realizes what they need to do to fix all the problems they've caused in Act 2. And so this is the start of Act 3, and your hero is finally figuring out how to fix things the right way. They've lost everything now, and now they've hit rock bottom, and now they know what they have to do. For example, Mark Watney in The Martian, he must figure out how to get the Ares 4 to the site of where the rocket, is, so that, he can launch off. And he has to get there without NASA's help. He has to do it himself. As your hero enters Act 3, there is a new realization that they have. And they realize that it was always me that needed to change and not all the people around me. So for your hero, up until this point in the story, your hero has done their best to avoid real issues in their life. They've chased after what they wanted instead of what they needed. They've tried to fix what was wrong in their life the wrong way and failed. And they've blamed everyone else for what went wrong in their lives. And at the start of Act 3, your hero realizes, I have made some pretty big mistakes. But now that I see the truth and I can face the truth, now I can fix it. So those are the 5 foundational elements to brainstorm. These are also the final step to nail your novel's beginning before you start writing. And working through those steps and asking deeper questions of your characters, setting your story, are the first steps to convert an idea into a story. If your idea is not fleshed out, you will most likely find it tough to work with, or you'll lose a ton of time trying to begin writing your novel, or even worse, you might not finish your novel at all. So I want to encourage you to be very purposeful as you begin your novel. Take time to write out, go back through all the videos and work through each of these 7 steps and just see what you can, flesh out of your ideas that you have for your novel before you begin writing your novel. Something to try for this final video is read through the summary of your story once more, that short summary that you wrote. And then I encourage you to brainstorm and write down ideas for each of these 5 foundational elements that we just listed. And it will help to give you clarity if you review and write down also what your hero's deep wounds and fears are, along with their big goals, desires, and motivation. And as you work through each of these 5 foundational elements, I think you'll be surprised at the new ideas that will come to you about your characters and your story's theme, that will help you to understand the big picture of your story better. So I hope all of these steps and all 7 videos have been helpful for you. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'm excited for you as you begin your journey to write amazing stories. If you've enjoyed this video series and found it helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe below so other new writers can find this video too. Happy writing!